President, we have a national emergency.
This is one of the things that we can shoot first and ask questions later. Normally you can't do that.
All of a sudden these trees started moving out of the way. They parted for me. And then I came out into this opening, and there where I saw Jesus Christ.
Back in 1927, an American socialist, Norman Thomas, 6 times candidate for president on the Socialist Party ticket, said the American people would never vote for socialism. But he said under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program. He is more imminent.
James Madison, in 1788, speaking to the Virginia Convention, said, "Since the general civilization of mankind, I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachment of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations." When men were free.
Broadcasting live from a secret location buried deep below the earth, you're about to make a connection to the signs of the times. W. Dean Shook is live on the air right now.
And welcome to End Time News. I'm W. Dean Shook, bringing you the truth in the news the mainstream media is never going to tell you. And I'm proud and privileged to be able to do this. I appreciate everybody. Welcome to our national and our international audience. You're all so important. I just don't know how to say how much I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for being here. I truly mean that from the heart. Thank you. And let me give a reminder, we now have iPhone and an Android app, so you can never miss another episode of End Time News. You can download this app at Google Play for your Android and at the App Store for your iPhone. It's small and it's free. Never miss another episode of End Time News by getting that app free today. And we're going to start this with 2 stories that are interconnected. And I'm going to show you the connection as we go. Don't worry, you won't miss it, because this is actually pretty incredible to me. The liberals, for some reason, can't keep track of what they're saying. This first one, according to WND, Obama is hustling full throttle to set up amnesty contracts. Sources say the White House is ignoring the judge's court order to stop. It says the Obama administration is hustling to move more quickly on contracts for the executive memo-driven amnesty program, even though the federal judge has ordered Washington bureaucrats to stop in their tracks. This according to Judicial Watch. That's the Washington watchdog organization, said Friday it has a source inside the industry of government contracts who said there's no indication that the court order has impacted, slowed down, or modified the procurement in any way. They're really rushing into it. Judicial Watch cited a government solicitation for companies to provide services for Obama's plan to process illegal aliens and give them many of the privileges of citizenship. The deal is immense, Judicial Watch said, with an estimated need for between 200 and 600 contractors. The government solicitation describes itself as a combined synopsis solicitation for commercial services prepared in accordance with the format in FAR Subpart 12.6, as supplemented with additional information included in this notice. This announcement constitutes the only solicitation and proposals are being requested. It's for commercial services. It's a request for proposals and proposal due on February 20th. That would be yesterday. This combined synopsis is for record support services in support of deferred action for parents of U.S. citizens and lawful residents, hereafter referred to as DAPA. Industry is encouraged to review the request for proposal and ask questions by January 30th, 2015. It intends to award a contract from this solicitation in March of 2015 in order to provide the awardee time to hire, train, and process security clearances, and for full performance to Commerce on May 19th. And this announcement alone proves they're still working on it. They're not even slowing down. It describes how Obama announced his intent for executive action on deferred action for parents of U.S. citizens and permanent residents. It says a resulting workload will be driven by the filing of a newly created Form I-821P, request for consideration on deferred action, but it doesn't reference the judge's order to stop actions. Judicial Watch said, though a federal court has blocked President Obama's amnesty order, the administration continues working behind the scenes to quickly award multi-million-dollar contracts to firms that can process all of these illegals. They went on to say the complex deal is being rushed through at full throttle pace. Extremely rare for such a huge venture that's surely to radically change the current system, according to Judicial Watch's source, who has worked for decades as a contract expert at the highest levels of government. WND reported earlier when another federal judge in Pennsylvania declared the amnesty unconstitutional. But just like all other Muslims, Obama feels he's above the law and will do as he pleases. The Obama administration clearly feels it doesn't have to obey court orders. And here's the related story from CNN. DHS has designated right-wing extremists a greater threat than ISIS. See if you can find the connection here. The Obama administration has named a national security threat it believes is more dangerous than even the Islamic State terrorists beheading, crucifying, and burning human beings as right-wing extremists. According to CNN, a new intelligence assessment circulated by the Department of Homeland Security this month and reviewed by CNN focuses on the domestic terror threat from right-wing sovereign citizen extremists. Now, CNN doesn't cite a specific source, but it says a new intelligence report 24 violent sovereign citizen-related attacks across the U.S. in 2010. Some federal and local law enforcement groups view the domestic terror threat from sovereign citizens as equal to, and in some cases greater than, the threat from foreign domestic terror groups such as ISIS that garner more public attention. Here's the connection. CNN reported the government says these are extremists who believe they can ignore laws, that their individual rights are under attack in routine daily instances such as traffic stops or being required to obey court orders. Ding, 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 ding. They're extremists if they're required to obey court orders. Vice President Joe Biden, speaking at the summit, compared the troubling rise in the Islamic State attacks to right-wing extremists. These are militias who commit violence in the name of the Bible. Violence in the name of the Bible. Now, he did not cite a single instance where there was an act of terrorism done in the name of the Bible. According to the report, Potok said some groups in the movement travel the country pitching their ideology as a way to help homeowners escape foreclosure or get out of debt by simply ignoring the courts and bankruptcy laws. Say it isn't so. WND reported in 2009 when DHS issued a report warning of the possibility of violence by unnamed right-wing extremists concerned about illegal immigration, increasing federal power, restrictions on firearms, abortion, and the loss of U.S. sovereignty, and singles out returning war veterans as particular threats. Well, I guess you can take that for what it's worth. Unbelievable. And I got a couple stories here that are going to outline some pestilence. You know, I pointed these stories out because I'm not sure really where this is going. All of these new strains of new viruses, where is all of this going? How are we coming up with all of these superbugs? Well, whatever the cause, we're being slammed with them in any case. According to Reuters Los Angeles Hospital, most of you know this, but I'm going to tell you again, just in case somebody lives in a cave and missed it. Los Angeles Hospital warns 179 patients possibly exposed to a superbug. This teaching hospital has told sources of the patients they may have been exposed to a drug-resistant bacterial superbug during an endoscopy procedure that infected 7 patients and contributed to the death of 2. More than 170 patients who may have been infected by CRE are being offered home testing kits. The UCLA hospital system said an internal investigation determined in late January that CRE may have been transmitted to patients by 2 of 7 scopes being used by the center, all made by Olympus Medical Systems Group. It said 179 people may have been exposed, 7 of whom were confirmed to have the infections, and 2 who died. The circumstances of the deaths have not been disclosed, nor have details of the conditions of the 5 other infected patients. They said it's important to emphasize this particular outbreak of CRE is not a threat to the health of the public of Los Angeles County. This according to Benjamin Swartz, Deputy Chief of the Communicable Disease Control Program at the LA County Public Health. He told a news conference that the 5 surviving infected patients are being treated with antibiotics. Well, the public's not at health. Well, again, according to Reuters, meningitis bacteria is blamed for Oregon student's death, this also being called a superbug. A bacterial infection related to meningitis is to blame for the death of a University of Oregon student athlete who was found unresponsive in her dorm room earlier this week. Freshman Lauren Jones, 18, was found unconscious on Tuesday, declared dead at a nearby hospital. An initial autopsy did not offer conclusive results, but tests completed on Friday confirmed that meningosemia caused her death. Lane County Public Health spokesman David Jensen said in a statement that Jones was the 4th student at the school confirmed to have been infected, a bacterial precursor to meningitis, since an outbreak began earlier this year. The other 3 students are all recovering, according to this statement. The university also announced plans for a full-scale vaccination program beginning the first weeks of March, although it had already been offering vaccinations on request. The plan to vaccinate all 2,200 students will begin in March. Davis said the Lane County Health Department is not offering vaccinations to the general public as risk of contracting the disease is extremely low for people not associated with the school. They said it's contracted through personal contact or prolonged exposure, and outbreaks of this bacterial infection are relatively rare. Doesn't seem relatively rare to me. Well, it seems that not only do we have a new strain of HIV in Cuba that I reported a couple days ago, but now it's malaria that's mutated into superbug status. According to CNBC out of Bangkok, the world's best drug for treating malaria, medicine that's key to saving millions of lives in Africa and beyond, is losing its effectiveness in a much larger swath of territory than was previously known, according to the research that was released on Friday. The study in the Lancet Infectious Disease, that's a medical journal, raises the troubling prospect that resistance to the drug artemisinin might one day severely hamper treatment of a disease that kills hundreds of thousands of people every year. According to Charles Woodrow, this should focus minds. He said, we have to eliminate these very resistant parasites. The fear is that if we don't, we could reverse all of the gains that we've made. For several decades, artemisinin has been considered an anti-malaria wonder drug. It rapidly rids the body of the parasite that's introduced to the body by a mosquito and infects the blood. The new study in the Lancet shows that resistance to the drug extends more than 1,500 miles away from Cambodia along the border between Myanmar and India. It was not known whether resistance had spread overland or whether a new diagnostic tool was revealing a situation that had previously gone undetected. One of the sites where they tested resistance was prevalent only 15 miles away from the border with India. And according to the Daily Mail, cases of rare, untreatable superbugs that killed 7 in a year rocket as health officials warn of an outbreak. Daily Mail is reporting at least 7 deaths were traced to the infections in outbreaks at the National Institute of Health Center last year. These superbugs springs from a type of bacteria that's resistant to antibiotics and can linger in the body for more than a year. The bacteria can cause pneumonia, intestinal and urinary tract infections, and bloodstream infections. Doctors say it's still impossible to eradicate the superbug and focusing on containing the spread. The Center of Disease Control and Prevention is warning doctors to be on the lookout for an untreatable, multi-drug resistant superbug emerging in the U.S. and around the world. This superbug springs from a bacteria that has 15 different types on which it can be seen in the U.S. in the last year. The unique bacteria can cause pneumonia, intestinal, urinary tract infections, and bloodstream infections. And it's kind of curious how those are the same symptoms of the other superbugs that we've talked about, as we seem to be entering a new phase of worldwide pestilence. And we've got fresh news out of Obama's homeland, Kenya. Hundreds of millions of American tax dollars are flowing for government services in Kenya. A new round of advisors are being sent to Kenya on behalf of the Obama administration, which plans to deploy individual private contractors to assist in the simultaneous expansion of healthcare services and the ongoing decentralization of the national government. Indeed, one of Obama's long-term goals is to establish a social health insurance system to enable equitable provisions of health care to all Kenyan citizens. This comes from one of the advisor recruitment documents that explicitly declares the delivery of health care and related services such as family planning. The U.S. Agency for International Development, or the USAID, is recruiting a senior health system strengthening advisor to help manage, now get this, a complex $260 million program, the largest in sub-Saharan African and seventh largest in the world, according to the solicitation. Working out of USAID's Office for Population and Health in Nairobi, the selected candidate will advise USAID/Kenya on all aspects of family planning, maternal and child health, which we know means abortion, nutrition, tuberculosis, malaria, and HIV/AIDS. USAID's Kenya-wide integrated package of health services is designed to strengthen local capacity to eventually offer the services independently. Another USAID contractor position is a Senior Devolution Advisor, or SDA, who would focus on implementing a $125 million portfolio of existing U.S.-funded programs. The SDA specifically will assist in the transfer of concentrated political power from Nairobi to the country's central government, as ordered by Kenya's relatively new constitution. Thank you, American taxpayers, for funding this genocide eugenic movement in Obama's home country. Abortions in Kenya paid for by you, the American taxpayer. You go. Well, there's more. According to WND, a new Obama project to boost Kenya's power companies. And this story is rather revealing. Billions of U.S. and international donor dollars in recent years have been delivered to Kenya and Tanzania to modernize their national electrical system. But that isn't stopping the Obama administration from tapping the U.S. Treasury for more cash to send to his friends overseas. WND has discovered that a presidential agency is funding new exploratory missions benefiting Kenya's state-owned energy companies, as well as U.S. corporate behemoths such as GE. Among the project's beneficiaries is Geothermal Development Company, or GDC. It's a self-described 100% state-owned company formed by the government of Kenya as a special purpose vehicle in order to fast-track the development of geothermal services in their country. Now, the GDC directing manager, Salias Simu, speaking at a United Nations University dinner outside of Nairobi, pointed out in 2009 that geothermal energy is at the core of its economic strategy. Prime Minister Raila Odinga, accompanied by Hiroku Hino, Odinga's economic advisor, also said geothermal is a winner for Kenya's energy needs and an answer to global warming. Now get this, Odinga is a fellow Lu tribesman to Barack Obama's family, and it's spearheading Kenya's green energy development. The Financial Times of London said last month in a special report titled Africa and the Green Economy. So apparently, President Obama is exercising a little nepotism here as he uses our tax dollars to finance his home country and his home tribe. And there's more. President Obama is also going to force refugees abortions, and the LA Times is going to explain how it's government's responsibility to regulate the Second Amendment, as well as removing God from our society more and more every single day. We're going to cover all of that right after this short break. You're listening to End Time News.
We have not massively expanded the welfare state. That's just not true.
Under the Obama administration, food stamp spending has surged. Do you think he is not aware of these numbers?
We have so many people who can't see a fat man standing beside a thin one without coming to the conclusion the fat man got that way by taking advantage of the thin one.
Margaret Thatcher once said, the problem with socialism is you eventually run out of other people's money.
So they're going to solve all the problems of human misery through government and government planning.
And there is hardly anybody who will defend the public housing program as having improved the housing of the poor.
The government has now made living off welfare a lifestyle choice.
Well, now, if government planning and welfare had the answer, and they've had almost 30 years of it, shouldn't we expect government to read the score to us once in a while?
When I said change we can believe in, I didn't say change we can believe in tomorrow.
Shouldn't they be telling us about the decline each year in the number of people needing help? But the reverse is true. Each year, the need grows greater.
You pay people to be unemployed, you'll get more unemployment.
Welfare spending 10 times greater than it was in the dark depths of the Depression. What are we doing to those we seek to help? For 3 decades, we've sought to solve the problems of unemployment through government planning, and the more the plans fail, the more the planners plan. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
You know, the attacks on Christian values and the attacks on the culture have become so significant that I pretty much exclusively cover those stories now at Fox News. And through my coverage and through my investigative reporting, I've discovered that it's not just a war on religious liberty, but this is in fact a war that is specifically targeting people of the Christian faith. Some of the most egregious attacks on religious liberty have actually come from the United States military under the Obama administration. We've had the Obama administration put liberal lawyers in the Pentagon, and they've been handing down edicts. For example, I tell the story in the book about a diversity training session that soldiers had to go through. They were told that Roman Catholics and evangelical Christians were examples of religious extremism, right up there with Hamas and Al-Qaeda. I tell stories in the book about how officers have been told to hide their faith in God. They've been told to remove Bibles and other religious icons from their desks. And in Afghanistan, I tell stories about how chapels have been cleansed of any Christian markings, whether it be a cross or some sort of an altar or a statue of Jesus. These are just some of the examples of religious extremism occurring in the military. But within the general population, I've discovered that our public schools have become basically indoctrination centers. I tell the story in the book about how one group of school children actually went to a VA hospital to sing Christmas carols, and they were met at the door by a government officer who told them that they would not be able to sing songs about Jesus, but instead handed the children a list of government-approved Christmas songs. These are some of the stories that I tell in God Bless America. The president has really pushed forward a secular humanist agenda during his administration, and it's really puzzling. This man professes to be a follower of Jesus Christ, and yet he allows his administration to attack his own faith. It just doesn't make sense. But at the same time, we have public schools that are controlled by liberals, and especially in the university sector, where it's just a battleground every day for young people of the Christian faith. And unfortunately, these people are in places of influence and power, and as a result of that, we are seeing a significant culture decline, and it's happening in a very short amount of time.
GoDaddy offers everything you need to make a name for yourself on the web, from domain names and website builders to complete e-commerce solutions. we've earned our place as the world's #1 accredited domain registrar by delivering world-class products at competitive prices and support them with industry best services delivered 24/7, 365. We're proud to serve our customers from locations around the world. Sign up now at wdeanshook.com and get your domain name as low as $5.99 a year. Sign up now at wdeanshook.com. Go, Daddy. Go, Daddy.
Hi folks, have you noticed the federal government and police departments are using drones for everything? Drones are expensive. They're hard to fly. It can take up to a week just to learn to make a drone hover. Not anymore. There's a new generation of drones that are not only affordable but very easy to fly. Now you can have your own personal drone, anything from a micro mini that'll fit in the palm of your hand, right up to a full-scale model, 10 inches in diameter like the model I have, the V949 Pro. Comes with a 6-axis 4-rotor blade and an HD 2.4 camera mounted on the bottom. These drones are made of a space-age polymer. They're durable, and don't worry about crashing your drone. Replacement blades for this drone from the website are only $1.80 for a pack of 4. That's right, I said $1.80 for a pack of 4 replacement blades. You can also get an extra long life battery. This battery allows you up to a half hour of flight time with a maximum speed of 40 miles an hour. Have your own personal drone, and you can get all of this for under $70. If you go to the website, wdeanshook.com, and click on the banner on the webpage, you can get from 7 to 22% off your personal drone. It's shipped as a kit. You can be up and flying your own personal drone with an HD camera within a half hour. Come to the webpage, wdeanshook.com. Click on that banner and get your discount today. wdeanshook.com.
What's going on in white America, U.S. of KKKA?
You never heard those comments?
I hadn't heard those comments.
He was selling them in the lobby at a church.
What can I tell you?
How many times did you go to church a month?
You know, I'd probably go twice a month.
And he never said inflammatory stuff?
He didn't say stuff like that, all right?
Did he say white people were bad?
No.
It is this world, a world where cruise ships throw away more food in a day than most residents of Port-au-Prince see in a year, where white folks' greed runs a world in need, apartheid in one hemisphere, apathy in another hemisphere. That's the world.
And he never said inflammatory stuff?
He didn't say stuff like that, all right?
Did he say white people were bad?
No.
Where white folks' greed runs a world in need.
What can I tell you?
No, no, no. Not God bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human.
And thank you for allowing me that short break. I appreciate it very much. According to WND, the abortion genocide continues under Obama, especially for anybody that's coming from overseas. Obama rules to force Christian charities to offer abortions to refugees. A new set of rules, soon to be issued by the Obama administration, would require faith-based charities to provide abortions to child refugees entering the U.S. without their parents. Organizations working to help resettle the children contend the rules are a violation of the conscious rights of faith-based groups. The rules would require charitable organizations, including faith-based groups that help resettle refugee children, to make referrals for emergency contraception or to partner with groups to provide abortions. The groups also have the option of notifying the federal government, which would then make the arrangements for the abortions of these children. Failure to follow the rule means the group would no longer be eligible for federal aid. They must comply no later than June 24th. Or, like all programs that are federally funding, you'll do it their way or they'll pull the funding. The new rules are being fast-tracked in what some are calling elusive methods. The Center for Family and Human Rights, or CFAM, notes the public has until Monday to comment on the new rules which were issued on Christmas Eve. The administration says it would be contrary to public interest to wait until a public notice and comment process is complete. The administration also asserts no congressional overview is required, so there's no issue with federalism or any impact on families in the new guidance. The new rules are collectively titled Implementation of the Unaccompanied Alien Children provision of the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2013. That's not exactly a title that would advise the average citizen that a Christian organization will be forced to participate in abortions or lose their federal funding. And you're going to find all of these stories on the website at wdeanshook.com. And these are well worth reading the entire stories. Well, Breitbart News is reporting that the LA Times has sent a message to the NRA, government's responsibility to regulate the Second Amendment. On February 19th, the LA Times reacted to the growing momentum for campus carry legislation across the country by referring to the NRA as crackpots and reminding the organization that it's the government's responsibility to protect the public through reasonable gun control laws. In other words, shall not be infringed does not mean shall not be regulated or controlled. According to the Times, the NRA has hit a new low by promoting the idea that an expansion of campus carry means gun-toting women would be armed to defend themselves in the event of a sexual assault. The Times claims no one should be surprised by the NRA's position. After all, these are the same crackpots who argued that students should be allowed to carry guns for self-defense following a 2007 attack at Virginia Tech. They went on to say these are also the crackpots who argued that armed teachers would have prevented Adam Lance from walking through a gun-free zone shooting victims at will with no concern over retaliation from unarmed people. Yes, by supporting the expansion of campus carry, the gun lobby is showing yet again that it doesn't belong to a serious conversation about ending the scourge of gun violence. And just to drive the point home, the Times reminds all of us that Americans have a Second Amendment right to own guns, but it's not an absolute right. Really. Well, speaking of our constitutional rights, here's one from LifeSite News where a judge says that religious expression is not protected by the Constitution. Richland, Washington, February 10th, a Washington State Superior Court judge ruled this week, politicians have the power to restrict religious actions and expression. Benton County Superior Court Alexander Ekstrom ruled that while the religious beliefs of florist Bornell Stutzman related to marriage is protected by the U.S. Constitution, he says living her life in accordance with her faith is not. He said that in trade and commerce, and more particularly when seeking to prevent discrimination in public accommodations, legislators are allowed to prohibit conduct it deems discriminatory. Ekstrom ruled that this applies even where the motivation for that conduct is grounded in religious belief. In a public statement, the legal director for the Secularist Advocacy Group, the state chapter, said, "Religious beliefs do not give any of us a right to ignore the law or to harm others because of who they are. When gay people go to a business, they should be treated like everyone else and not be discriminated against." This, of course, is referring to the bakery that refused to make a cake for a gay wedding. Apparently, the right to refuse service to anyone no longer exists. And with the upcoming speech of Bibi Netanyahu, it seems that the White House is still brainstorming on how to hurt him. According to the AP out of Washington, what's becoming an increasingly nasty grudge match. The White House is mulling ways to undercut Prime Minister Netanyahu's upcoming trip to Washington and blunt his message that a potential nuclear deal with Iran is bad for Israel and bad for the world. Said there are limits. Administration officials have discarded the idea of Obama himself giving a Iran-related address to rebuke the two speeches Netanyahu is to deliver during his early March visit. Among them, a presidential interview with a prominent journalist known for coverage of the rift between Obama and Netanyahu. Multiple Sunday show television appearances by senior national security aides pointed a snub of America's leading pro-Israel lobby, which is holding its annual meeting while Netanyahu is in Washington. The administration has already ruled out meetings with Netanyahu, saying it would be inappropriate for the two to meet so close to Israel's March 17th election. They said Vice President Biden will be away, his absence behind Netanyahu conspicuous in coverage of the speech to Congress. Other options were described by officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss deliberations. And here's one out of the Christian Post. An atheist group has forced a West Virginia school to remove crosses from a memorial honoring a late teacher. A memorial bench located near the entrance of Ravenswood Middle School of Jackson County, West Virginia, has agreed to remove the cross that were part of a memorial honoring a teacher who died in 2004 following a complaint from an atheist organization. Ravenswood Middle School, part of the Jackson County School District, was the site of this memorial. In a vote taken Thursday, the Jackson County School Board decided to remove the cross following a complaint from the Madison, Wisconsin-based Freedom from Religion Foundation. This memorial honors late teacher Joanne Christie, who taught at Ravenswood Middle School for more than 2 decades. Christie's widow said at its meeting Thursday, people spoke out in support of the memorial. After Christie died in a car accident in 2004, friends and loved ones built a stone memorial near the entrance of Ravenswood. Said, "We are sensitive to the possibility that the crosses and angels are meant as a memorial. However, it's school constitutional obligation to find a religiously neutral means of expressing remembrance in a memorial display." Blaine Hess, superintendent for Jackson County, said in a statement released in advance of the Thursday meeting that the community disapproved of the complaint. They went on to say if there's an angel, that it's more so a representation of that particular person. I'm not sure that there'd be a legal issue with it, but apparently there is, and they're removing it. And WND is reporting that there's something more to Benjamin Netanyahu's upcoming speech. He said there's heavenly signs that abound. Religious leaders are warning the United States is nearing a day of judgment based on its treatment of the nation of Israel. What's more, they say, is signs in heaven are coinciding with what's shaping up to be an unprecedented, controversial address by Netanyahu on March 3rd. Pastor Mark Blitz of El Shaddai Ministry says that our nation will be judged based on whether the United States sides with or against the Jewish state. Blitz believes signs in the heavens and correlations between feast days and the biblical calendar show a judgment is coming soon. When Netanyahu speaks before Congress on March 3rd, this is the day before the Feast of Esther, when the enemies of Israel, specifically Iran, Persia, had planned to destroy the nation of Israel, he said. The next day in Purim, which celebrates the day Israel achieved victory over Iran. The timing is significant of this, just as important as the timing of the blood moons. Blitz, who's author of Blood Moons, Decoding the Eminently Heavenly Signs, warns the next blood moon is scheduled to appear over Passover, which begins April 3rd, just 1 month after Netanyahu's speech. Said this will be preceded 2 weeks earlier by a total solar eclipse on March 20th, 3 days after the Israeli election, and coincides with Nisan, the beginning of the new year according to the biblical calendar. These prophetic warnings come amid unprecedented tumult in the American-Israeli relationship. He said, we should understand that God doesn't have to do anything in these times. I think they're just pointing out that we're ripe for it. And if it's not now, then when? We know we're close. I think most people who know anything about the history of great empires, seeing a startling repeat of history, this is really a simple concept. If you follow some simple, clear steps, you can tell what the outcome's going to be without a lot of thought. This is a simple recipe. Let me give you an example. If you take step 1, you get a pan. And step 2, you fill that pan with water. And step 3, you put that pan on the stove. Step 4, you turn the heat on high. Do you know what's going to happen? Eventually, that water's going to boil. Well, likewise, If you look at the history of the rise and the fall of the great empires of the world, you'll see they all had very similar steps that led to their boiling of the water, their fall. We in America are taking these same steps, the same steps all the other great empires did in the past. And it's easy to see the result is going to be the same as theirs. These same steps that led to their fall will lead to ours. This time we have a booster. It's our government who's not only leading the way, but at the same time, they're behind us and they're pushing us forward. They're turning up the heat to make the water boil more quickly. Now, is there something different about America's fall? I say yes, there is. This is a nation that's built on the foundation of God's values and precepts. We have proclaimed ourselves a Christian nation. As a result, God has blessed America in several different ways. Now America is walking away from God. We're removing God out of the very nation that He has blessed so richly. We're turning our backs, not only on God, but also on the blessings that He's blessed us with. And the fall from His grace is going to be a hard fall. Even if America's fall is necessary to bring about the last days, I think we're looking at a very hard fall because we as a nation have turned our backs on Him. How do I know that? I know because this is another repeat of history, and it's also a repeat of God's history. When God's people turn against Him, or forget Him, or start to go their own way, it eventually brings judgment on those people. He says, you are either for me or against me. There is no in between. Jesus said, because you are neither hot nor cold, but lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth. With God, there is no in between. You're either in or out. Right now, America is choosing. They're choosing out. And what's next? God's history says judgment. Can we save ourselves? Right now, I think God is shaking us. He's telling us to wake up. We're told that if we repent and turn to God, He will return to us and heal our nation. But will we return to Him? The times we're seeing around the world, combined with the end-time prophecy, says we may already be in the beginnings of sorrows, the birth pangs of the last days, and not just the last days of America. I think the message here is this. If you're someone who has not committed yourself to Christ, maybe you've always said, someday I'll do that. Now may be the time. Remember, for those who don't know Him, He's going to come like a thief in the night. But if you're up to speed on the signs of the times, this won't be a surprise to you. Today may be the day to take care of that. There's no magic words, no special things you need to say except, God, I'm a sinner. Please save me from my sin. Change my life. Be my Savior. And I promise these simple words will move God's heart. And He'll do just that. If you mean it, change will come. Make that change before it's too late. And you can email me at contact@wdeanshook. The homepage is wdeanshook.com. You can get the new iPhone app and the new Android app at Google Play and at the iStore. And as usual, when the dust settles and the smoke clears, I'll be back with more truth in the news. I'll see you then. Thank you.